We talked the word, sexual abuse, if you like, has come up a number of
Mm,
times.
mm,
I know that there will be a question of kind of what is abuse, and
mm.
does neglect count? Does physical abuse count? Does emotional abuse count? And I know obviously ICSA, Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, was very much sexual abuse.
Mm.
But could you speak into that a little bit around if potentially someone has experienced abuse at school that wasn't sexual in nature, um, uh, or in their early years, um, you know, what should they be thinking as far as what is abuse, and how does the law see it?
So I think the first thing to say is that I wouldn't want anybody to, watching this to think, my abuse doesn't count. And I think the important thing is to get advice from professionals around this, because abuse can cover a whole range of different things, as you've said. And sometimes it's possible to do something about particular forms of abuse even many years after the event. And there are a whole, we have now on the statute book a whole range of different criminal offences that can be looked at. So the first thing is, don't assume that the particular type of abuse you experienced, even if it's not sexual abuse, if it's some different form of abuse, emotional abuse or neglect or something of that kind, don't assume that nothing can be done about it. Get advice on that, and um, that's really important. I suppose that it is true to say in the law as we have it at the moment, because we have this 3-year time limit, we then have this question of what do you need to do to get over the 3-year time limit? And the the way, unfortunately, and I think this is wrong, the way the courts have tended to approach it is that they tend to have more sympathy or give more give more allowance to those who suffered sexual abuse, because sexual abuse is recognised by the courts as shaming and embarrassing, and therefore it becomes, on the face of it, easier to justify a delay in coming forward. So that's sort of where the courts have got to now. When other countries have changed their limitation laws to get rid of the 3-year time limit, they have done that in relation to not just sexual abuse, but emotional abuse, physical abuse, those other types of abuse, and that's the change that we need to see. And I think the other thing I'd say on this is that often actually it's quite difficult to sort of draw clear demarcation lines between these different types of abuse. I'm thinking I've done some cases over the years involving particular forms of corporal punishment in residential schools, where on the face of it, what you're dealing with here is a physical assault in the form of corporal punishment, but there is most definitely a sexual component to it. And you will know about those kinds of cases, and we've seen lots of them over the years. And in fact, what's going on is that the corporal punishment is the opportunity for, the predator to kind of, act out their particular sexual fantasies. And so you can't sort of draw, sort of definitive demarcation lines between these different types of abuse. I think the important thing is get advice. Speak to other people, speak to professionals, get advice on it, and also, this feeds into the point that we have to change the law around limitation, and if and when we get that change, it needs to cover not just sexual abuse but other forms of abuse, which can, in my experience, actually be equally not just equally damaging but equally silencing. People, the courts tend to kind of think, well, physical abuse, that's less embarrassing than sexual abuse. Physical abuse actually can be incredibly damaging and incredibly silencing, and I've seen that on cases.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for explaining that. I think we, seen and heard, we see people come to us for support from right across the spectrum, from very severe sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect as well, in psychological terms, what you're missing in your life often can be, more damaging than what is perpetrated onto you. What the absence of love, connection, safety, that can be a part of an institutional upbringing.